Welcome to an episode of Mind Control. It's just profoundly healing to come out of an experience like that, where the things that we went through could have broken our relationship, but it didn't. And we're still friends, amazingly enough. And I hope that this conversation is able to help some people who might be going through these kind of experiences or people who might be studying this type of sociological phenomena. Enjoy.
Using using your voice is a really, really important part of the healing process because um yeah, you couldn't for a long time. And a lot of our reality was very controlled, and what we could say and think was controlled. Um, that's something that I think a lot of people who didn't grow up like that can never understand what it's like to not have, like, to not be safe inside of your own mind, where your mind in the your not just your outer reality, but your inner reality is being monitored or controlled and accessed. There's a very specific type of harm that comes from experiencing that reality, right? Where you, not even your thoughts are safe. And so that is, there's a lot of self-preservation that is learned behavior that you develop to survive when you're not safe, and when your thoughts aren't safe, and when you don't have the freedom to think the way that you want to think. um you definitely can't speak you can't say what you want to say, but you can't even think what you want to think. And so there's a very, like, the throat chakra, from, like, I guess, the westernized understanding of the Eastern chakra science. We talk about the throat chakra, but
Mhm.
in my 20s and into my 30s, I would always have a lot of pain in my throat. And when I would have a lot of emotions, it would be like a fist, and that would, like,
Like
ache
a
in my
almost a
throat.
stabbing feeling, like a really sharp pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I have
and
had that a lot too.
it would even it was in my dreams. I was able to, because I would not be able to speak in my dreams a lot. And then I was able to start speaking in my dreams, and um uh that was a cool milestone for me. But the being able to speak and your truth is very, very powerful and healing in huge ways. So that's awesome. And just being able to stand up for yourself and say what is true for you, and then have that be, there's also a part of it that's key with being witnessed in your truth by others as well, because a lot of the trauma that we experienced was also, like, in a group setting. And so having safe people around you that can support you and witness you and your truth is also a big key for me, because I figured out how to make myself safe, but I kind of isolated myself for a while doing that. And so that's been something that I've worked really hard to invest in community, invest in relationships that feel safe, And all of that has gone a really long way to me being able to speak my truth and not really have those symptoms anymore. If I'm very triggered, if I'm having like some sort of intense emotional thing, I will sometimes lose the ability to speak. I can be nonverbal sometimes. In high sensory environments or like emotionally challenging environments, I can struggle with the ability to speak, but it's definitely just worlds different now. And I'm actually like feel like I can articulate myself reasonably well on the spot. Uh
Yeah, that's amazing. So, just for context for people that are, whoa, drop my speaker. Context for people that are listening. So we were both in the Homestead Heritage group, which is uh a group that is existing outside of Waco, Texas, and I think they still have groups, and it's expanded to where they have like multi-country thing going on now.
I didn't
Um,
know that. I do know that they're still active though.
they are still active. There was an article that I read recently. I forget where it is. I'll have to find it and link it somewhere here, but it said, yeah, they have several groups. There's like one in England, there might be an Australian one. But the anyway, so yeah, we were a part of this group when we were kids. We were from when we were born, I think.
Yeah, so I believe you were born there. I was not born there. I think I was about 6 years old when we joined.
Okay.
Was not born there. I think you were the first one that was. There's uh there's the phenomena with the well, there's the description, I guess, that people use with first generation versus second generation cult survivors or cultists. And the second generation are the ones that are born there. I think technically I'm not a second generation cultist, but because so much of my childhood was spent there, I think it kind of qualifies as
You
that.
would qualify as a second generation because you were so young. Because
Yeah.
the second generation thing is you don't really have a personality that's before the group. And
And you
so
also didn't have agency, like it wasn't our choice to be there. And I think that's
exactly.
one of the more disempowering and traumatizing things about being in a cult when you're a child, is that, if you're an adult, you chose to be there, and technically you can oftentimes choose to leave.
Exactly.
Even if it's hard, you are an adult, and so you have the ability to leave, that kids don't have, because kids have to depend on the family structure. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of an important distinction also.
And especially as a young child, you don't really have a personality that's formed yet. So
Yeah,
technically, you don't have a pre-cult personality to go back to when you get out.
correct. Yeah. I have memories of myself before. Um I do remember that.
Well, you're
But
probably, I was talking to Jared and he said that he was talking to our mom and she said that they were part of a different group before they joined Homestead Heritage called The Way.
mm,
And I did not know this. He just told me this last weekend.
okay. Yeah, I
So,
never heard of that one, but I do remember that we would go to we were going to some different groups. A lot of them were just like smaller, like churches, home groups, and then they met some people. I remember that then were interested in Homestead, and I think they kind of like joined it together a little bit with like their friends. Um, but I don't have any specific memories of the first times that we were there. I just remember I have a couple of different memories from before, and then yeah, I don't have a ton of memories from when I'm about, I would say for me, when things started getting dark was around like age maybe like 10 or 11. When I was a lot younger, when I was like, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think it was a lot easier for me to not really understand what was going on. And then when I was about 10 and 11, I remember that's when I started realizing, like, oh shit, like this is it. This is kind of like, this is gonna be my life. And
Like something's wrong, like
so,
something doesn't feel
yeah,
right.
I could tell that, like, I could tell that things were very different for us than a lot of other people. And because we were all homeschooled, um, we didn't have a lot of context for like what life was like for different people. There were like some neighbor kids, and we weren't really supposed to play with them, but like you could tell like a little, like their lives were different. They went to school, they had friends over in the neighborhood, and we weren't supposed to like play with any of the neighbor kids. It was very isolating experience overall. Um, and so when I was, yeah, about 10 or 11, I started realizing that things were really different. And then also as I became a teenager, um, I was the oldest. And so I definitely was kind of the first one in the family group to really start pushing back against what things were like, and why, and like arguing or be like, why are we doing this,
So how
wanting
old
things.
were you? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
How old were you when we got out?
I was 17 about to be 18.
Wow. So you were in the group longer than anyone else. Do you think you probably had like the worst experience out of all of the eight of us?
I don't know, I don't think that that's really something that can be quantified.
Right.
Because everybody had a unique experience. Each of you are, your own unique person and your own unique energy and experience. I remember you had a lot of health issues, and the church didn't really believe in Western medicine. They were very much like alternative homeopathic type of remedies. So I know that, you had a lot of extra trauma around that, that the rest of us didn't have. I remember we would go and like try to figure out what was going on with you with some different things, and feeling like there wasn't anything we could do about it. And seeing you like in distress and pain was hard because, like that was it was difficult to feel like there was not anything you could do to help, when somebody is suffering, and that was definitely like a hard thing to see. I think that for me, like, we all had our own part in the system, in the family system. um and I'm actually super interested in learning about family systems as an adult, to better understand how humans interact with each other and relate to each other. And uh, family systems are really interesting and complex and have so many different roles and experiences that different people can have within the same family unit. They can be very different for different people inside the same family unit. So, for me, my challenges included the fact that I was the oldest kid, And I definitely like had a lot of responsibility to like my younger brothers and sisters to take care of them and look out for them and make sure that they were safe. And I remember feeling a lot of pressure from that. Um like our mom definitely had like I what I believe is like postpartum depression for a big part of our childhood, not being able to get out of bed and take care of herself or us. And so we all kind of had to do what we could. And that's a lot to put on, you know, a 12 or 13 or 14 or 15-year-old kid. Um,
Yeah,
and I did feel
that
very,
pressure. Wow, that's just
yeah,
that's
I did.
insurmountable for
Yeah.
your child, being expected to be a parent to so many of us at the same time with, and her mom, we're all about like 2 to 3 years apart. So she probably had postpartum depression for most of her life
Mm-hmm.
until I was born. And then after that, we were leaving the thing. So that was,
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine what her experience was like. But anyway,
Well, I don't think we left right. Like he was like, yeah, I guess he was like 2 when we left. Because I'm 15 years older than him. Um, I think that I definitely when we left, I stayed. I lived at home for like maybe I'm not sure the less than a year after the family officially left. And I stayed at home for a little while after that, but then I moved out. And I really put a lot of distance between my family unit because I was at the point where I didn't have any sort of relationship. I did have a relationship with my parents, but I didn't want one at that time. I They were very much trying to control me. It was like very still like they were very very protective. Like we had just gotten out of the cult environment. I was living at home. They were very controlling about like what I wore and what I was doing. And I it just was very unsustainable.
what
And
was it
I
like getting out and actually having a job and like making your own money and being able to like buy things for yourself that you wanted to buy for the first time in your life? Because we were very poor growing up.
yeah, it was cool. I was definitely not making very much money because I was a server. And I also had my mental health was terrible at the time for the first year or two after leaving. I was having all kinds of like integration into society challenges. I was having a lot of panic attacks, really severe anxiety. Um, but it was cool to have my own money. I remember I ate terrible junk food for a while because we ate so healthy, and um we like couldn't have any refined sugar or like any junk food or anything like that. And so when I moved out, I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna eat McDonald's every day. I'm gonna drink like soda and eat candy. Um and so that was cool, but it wasn't healthy. So I definitely didn't have a lot of didn't have any good models for like how to live, because I just didn't know any better. I was having a lot of challenges integrating with into society on my own.
Yeah, and like
um
no plan at all as far as like what, trying to map out a future for yourself, like what logically makes sense as the next step for me as a growing young adult, like what does school look
yeah,
like? There was no
I didn't
money
have
put
any
aside for
support.
college for any of us. There was no planning, there's no conversation about uh what would you like to do and what options are available for you? And it was just kind of like, at least for me, it was
Yeah.
you're just kind of kicked out into the well, not kicked out, but like here you are in the world, right? Free at
Yeah.
last from all this control, but with no guidance.
Yeah, and I also didn't really know how to trust anybody for guidance either. I didn't have guidance from my family, and I really went through a period of time after moving out that I didn't talk to my family at all, because I needed that distance and I needed to create my own reality and I needed to figure out what that was for myself. But I definitely it was definitely pretty scary. I remember having, what I thought I was losing my mind. And I was probably having some like psychotic break, and uh didn't really know what was real, didn't really know what was wrong with me. I knew something was wrong with me, but just like mentally, but I didn't really know what that was. And I didn't really have a lot of coping mechanisms. Didn't really have any good way to support myself other than like jobs that I was trying to figure out how to do.
Right.
I started doing serving and figured that out and did that for a while. And that helped me find a place to live and had some roommates. Met a boyfriend, moved in with him. Um, Definitely like was kind of on my own journey and seeing what I believed, trying to figure that out. Went through like an agnostic phase because I was like, okay, like I know I what I don't believe, but I don't know what I do believe. And so maybe I'll just try not believing anything and kind of see how that feels.
I did the
And
exact same thing. As far as far as that last part that you said, the
yeah,
agnostic, actually, atheist, whatever, and then finding my own way.
yeah. I definitely it definitely felt like my life blew up, and I got my GED, and that was also, like if you don't have, I did try to go to college. Sissy, my grandma, supported me and really encouraged me to get into college. So I went to the community college and tried that for a little while. But I just like, because of the way that I was raised, I didn't trust anybody. I was definitely raised in the cult to have kind of a mindset of like, the world isn't a safe place. Nobody is a safe person,
Us
except
versus
for,
them.
yeah, except for like in the church, that's supposed to be safe, but that wasn't safe either because you
Uh,
couldn't trust anybody there. So I was definitely in a headspace of like nobody. I didn't know who I could trust. I didn't really know how to be in safe relationship with other people. And so I did feel like I had to do everything by myself, which might not have been the case, but I didn't know how to ask for or receive help or trust people, or even like, you know, later in life, now I know that unless you're a safe person for yourself, nobody will ever be safe for you because you don't know how to have good boundary practices with other people. And so at the time, like I was an unsafe person to myself, but I didn't really know how that worked at the time. So I just knew that you know, I knew that there was more,
Mhm.
and I wanted more for myself, and I kind of just started trying to see what else was out there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And there's so much, right? Because our world was so tiny. And then you find like, oh, there's all this stuff out here. And wow, because I don't remember ever learning about geography or like history or anything. It's just in this weird little world of like
Mm,
Homestead and then like the rest of the world where everybody was gonna go to hell. But
I definitely read a lot. We didn't have TV and our books were very controlled, but I read a lot. I read a lot of history. I read a lot of books about travel, read books about the world. And I did learn a lot that way. Like very anything that I really learned, I learned through my own independent reading, not so much like the curriculum,
right.
um, which was very the curriculum that they used was very like evangelical oriented, kind of like
It
they
was just
taught.
basic arithmetic and writing, right?
Yeah,
Reading,
I
writing, arithmetic.
I got well, and also like I think some of that had to do with like who was teaching us also because mom went to college for a little bit, but then she dropped out when, she had me when she was 19.
Yeah.
And by that point she wasn't going. I think she probably went for a semester or two. But I remember I got to like sixth grade algebra and we had the algebra textbook, but I really struggled with understanding it. And I think that part of that reason is because I didn't have anybody that could teach me that also
Absolutely.
understood it.
Yeah, you
And so,
didn't have anyone to teach us or anyone that understood it. And she was, going off of a probably a barely a high school education,
hmm
um,
yeah.
teaching, trying to homeschool 8 kids like that. I mean,
Yeah.
so how
So,
long was it since like when between the time when we got out and the first time that you actually like were able to talk to a real therapist? Like how many years was that?
oh man. I didn't see a therapist until I was in my early 30s. And it was because I was in a very happy relationship at the time, and I still didn't feel safe. I still didn't feel happy. I was actually getting more unsafe and getting triggered and feeling more traumatized after moving in with this person that I really cared about and trusted. And I was like, this is weird. Something's not right. Like, why do I have everything I ever wanted and I still don't feel safe? I still don't feel happy. I still don't feel like I feel like something's really, really wrong. And so then I found this therapist that did talk therapy, and I saw her for probably a year or two. I did teach myself like cognitive behavioral therapy when I was in my early 20s from like workbooks and textbooks because I really wanted to find some way to reshape my inner world and my thought processes. I was very interested in neurobiology, interested in understanding like why my brain was different. I had very crippling anxiety,
Mhm.
and I really wanted to figure out how to hack it. And I found cognitive behavioral therapy, and I really made huge strides in using that with myself to like reframe negative thoughts and maybe like understand things from a different perspective. I started playing around with like reality shifting at that point where I'm like, okay, well, if my brain is telling me that all of these terrible things every time I go out, all these like negative thought loops would come up. I would feel like a lot of physical symptoms of anxiety. I would like feel really anxious and like not know how to talk to people. And I was like, okay, well, if my brain is telling me all of this stuff, like, what if I just play around with running different scripts, like changing the narrative inside my brain and seeing if that does anything? And it did.
Yeah, no, that's
And
amazing. The strength that it takes to do that is just wow. I'm in awe of the human spirit. But we're about to talking about we were talking about just the sheer strength that you had, being able to sort of like pull yourself up by your own toenails so to speak, doing cognitive behavioral therapy on yourself
Yeah.
as a way to just kind of somehow make sense in the chaos, right?
Yeah, because survival is pretty powerful tool that humans have, and I if I wanted to live in a house and eat food, and buy clothes and survive, I had to work and have a job, and I had to, like deal with the things that I had going on in a way that made that so that I could get up and go to work. And you
Right.
know, you do what you have to do to do that. And I
And then,
definitely didn't have the luxury of sitting with my shit until I started making better money.
right,
Um and that happened in my later 20s. I was making six figures by the time I was 26 with a GED because I got work in the oil industry. And at the time, I just didn't really have a very good global understanding, or like didn't really have a lot of like political awareness, didn't understand that the oil and gas industry was so terrible for the environment. It was good money, and it was available to me. And so I started working, and that's the financial stability really went a long way to me being able to do nice things for myself, take care of myself, create stability for myself. And that was kind of what let me uh, do some things that kind of like put me in a better place
to move
mentally.
out of that survival mode where you're just, to even be able to think about what happened to you and
Yeah.
contextualize it.
Right. Because, like, I definitely was still in survival mode for a while after I left because it was just me. I didn't have any support. I was very scared. And I just kind of, you know, did what I had to do to take care of myself and didn't really have a lot of uh, skills or support to really kind of think about, myself as like outside of that in some way. But I did like I went to Burning Man when I was 23, I think was my first time. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that people could live a different life than the one that they were born into. That you could just kind of reinvent yourself, right? You can choose your own reality. Um, and that was very cool to see and to kind of be exposed to alternative culture and the concepts of uh like agency and autonomy and self-determination. And I I was able to kind of like drop into different communities where people did things in a different way, like the yoga community. I started doing yoga in my early 20s. Whenever I guess like mid to late 20s, I started making money where I could afford to go to yoga. And that taught me about like mindfulness and breath work, and like I started going to the gym, and I got like physically fit, and I went vegetarian, and I like ate healthily, and like just like the more I was able to like prioritize my own care, the better my mental health got, and the better I was able the better quality of life I was able to have.
Right.
Um, but I still like was stuck in some pretty like bad patterns with relationships for a while. Like in my 20s, I definitely didn't have good modeling for relationships. I was definitely in relationships that were harmful to me, that I I thought I was happy, but I remember I got married when I was either 24 or 25. And I didn't have a single friend that came to the wedding. I didn't have any friends. I had just family. And that, in retrospect, is a big red flag, right? Like, what do you mean you don't have any friends that will come to your wedding? I just didn't have friends. I had my boyfriend and or my fiance at the time. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of this recovery of being in these kind of groups that because one of the criteria of being a closed high control group or a cult is that they impose a type of isolation.
yeah. And
And
I
so,
definitely imposed that on myself, not even realizing it, because
right,
as
well,
that's
that's
all,
what you knew. That's what we were taught would keep us safe.
yeah.
So if you isolated yourself, you thought that would keep you safe, but it was
Yeah.
actually keeping you from all the things that would actually, resources and friendships and support and community and all those things that most people or maybe not most, but a lot of people do take for granted.
Yeah. And I do not take my community and my friends for granted because I had to work really, really hard to be the kind of person that could have friends, that could have community, that like could get out of their own head long enough to uh not blow up like the opportunities of friendship that were given to me in some way. And I learned a lot of that the hard way, but it
Yeah,
has changed my life in so many amazing ways to have friends and have community and have people be surrounded with people that I trust. Like, I am so grateful to myself that everybody that is in my life right now is somebody that loves me, cares for me, supports me, has my best interest at heart. Like, I have the most incredible support system. I never ever knew that I would ever have that.
oh,
And
I love that. That's I'm tearing up a little bit. That's
it's
so
really
nice.
cool, and it's not something that I take for granted at all because I know how hard it is to have that. And I also am really of the opinion that like the like crucible of oppression that we grew up in is just a like it's another like it's another it's an exam it's like the same thing that everybody else in mainstream society is experiencing, but just in a more concentrated form. So, like capitalism and like the world that our parents were trying to take us away from, um it affects everybody who lives in it. And it convinces us that like society that as we know it in the United States anyway, it convinces us that individualism is the way to success. Like it's just you. You have to step on anybody that it takes to get ahead.
Which is
People
isolation. That's an
it's
isolationist way of thinking, right?
yeah. So like the things that we experienced, while they were really traumatizing and harmful, I see those same things being experienced by people that didn't grow up in cults in like in different ways.
And I think that's what makes now that we're, grown and sort of healed mostly and like able to have that perspective of looking, stepping back and just being like, whoa, okay, actually this is happening globally and also within the context of like each country in different ways. I
Yeah.
think that's a really, really valuable perspective that even though what we went through was really difficult, it's given us this lens that most people aren't able to sort of like step back and really get that bird's eye view because they didn't experience that sort of divorce from, for lack of a better term, like everything that they knew up to a certain point. And when you're in this thing and you're going about it, you have your fully formed psychological profile, your personality, all these habits and whatever, and then you get ripped out of that, and then you have to suddenly create a new one and think about everything differently. You sort of have to start over with step-by-step logic and kind of
Yeah.
just build your way from like, okay, this makes sense, and
Yeah, I blew up my entire belief system and created a new one in its place. Like I knew that nothing that I was told was true for me at the time, right? Like now I have a lot, like now I've come to the point where I realize that a lot of what our parents were trying to protect us from and give us an alternative to are very valid, right? Like we didn't use plastic toys. We ate really healthy. Like we didn't watch TV. A lot of the like the whole point of the community was to be self-sufficient and to like share resources with each other, like the idealized version of like what that group was supposed to be. uh there are a lot of really positive things to the to that, right? Like if
absolutely.
in its purest form, that like desire for community, the desire to like live a life free from consumerism and give back and like create a better earth. I believe all of those things are super important, and I work hard to find ways that I can implement them in my own life. But at the time when I'm 18, 19, 20 years old, all I knew was that everything that I was told was wrong, because I could just see I hadn't separated the value system from the abuse. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just blow up everything I believe and I'm going to create a new belief system in its place. And like that's a very liberating thing to do, right? Like I essentially like liberated myself at a very young age. And that's that. A lot of times people who have a more conventional upbringing will have like what is called like an awakening or a radicalization of some kind, where they for whatever reason, maybe it's a spiritual awakening, maybe they get kicked off of their insurance and they can't like take care of themselves or something. People will have these moments in which they experience so much cognitive dissonance with their current belief system that they realize that they have to come up with something new in its place. um and that can be a very destabilizing thing to happen, right? And it's happened to me a couple of times since the first time that it happened, where after enough integration happens, then you're ready to kind of step into like whatever the next level of your becoming is.
Right.
And so I definitely had the unique perspective of like already fucking having gone through a crazy fucking awakening at like, you know, I probably like had one when we were there in my teens, because like I've spent a lot of time thinking about like my mental health and the experiences that I've had through the context of like my entire life. And so I'm of the opinion that I had like I definitely experienced like symptoms of psychosis in my teen years. And then again in my like 20s I had a period where I had just like break with reality. Like things were not things were not as they seemed, and I didn't know what was real. I was like in the process of like recreating my belief system, very like emotionally vulnerable, psychologically vulnerable. And uh I've every time that it happens, you get stronger and you understand yourself more, and you definitely learn from all of those experiences.
Yeah, I just think it's really a valuable perspective to have to be able to look at capitalism or the government or these wider systems and to see how they're implementing, the propaganda that
Yeah.
causes people to go along with it and
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
so
like
much of it is even how we have relationships, like how we get married, like to one person, and that's a very like capitalistic model, right?
yeah.
It's like, oh well, we have to get the tax benefits, honey, like um
Yeah.
a lot of that is
Christianity. Sorry, go ahead.
a lot. I mean, just so much of how a lot of people live their lives is just prescribed to them. And
Yeah.
I just see the governments of the world as like cults now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Christianity is a death cult, and so is the US empire. So, like, they are one and the same, and they use, like, like Christianity is a tool of oppression for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's not to say that Christianity cannot, like, be a beautiful, supportive thing for people who choose to use it that way, but it can also be, as we know, like a tool of oppression, a tool of control, and a very effective one. So,
Yeah, and it's interesting, like my friend was sending me excuse me, a bunch of different videos because I told them about Homestead Heritage and they're doing their own research online and they're sending me videos and there's this one I'll put it up. Maybe you can see this. She was a talented dancer. Just like the you can't really see it, but anyway, it's a video about Homestead and it's about this one girl and she looks really happy. It's nobody that we would have known. I think she's younger and probably was either born there or joined afterwards, but she's so happy and like saying how she loves the group so much and like, how it's helped her and like I think it's possible that there's people in that group that are just having a lovely experience,
mm,
Like I think that's
hmm
possible, especially if maybe they're in a well-to-do family and they
hmm
have, parents that were able to somewhat protect them or, they have their own kind of like group values set up to where they're able to exist within that group without being abused. I don't know. But I think what you said about Christianity can be a supportive thing for people. Any religion, there can be people within that religion or that group that they're having a great time, right? Like they're
yeah,
not really experiencing the the psychological torture that we experienced somehow. And like it's just interesting how people can be in the same groups, like you were saying with family systems earlier, and have such widely different experiences. It's just
yeah. And it's also possible that what you are seeing there is someone who is unable or unsafe to share what is true for them.
that's what I told my friend when they sent me that. I was like, okay, but the example, I gave them the example of being in the Friday night meetings and then the elders would like come up and put their hands on me and like do the like speaking in tongues until I uh acquiesced and did it as well just to make them leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like I was pretending a lot of the time to be into whatever it was. I wasn't actually into it. So that's what could be happening with this video of Taya Ons, you know. That's
Yeah. So masking, especially when it's based in survival, is extremely powerful. You can disassociate and convince yourself of almost anything at that point. So, we were told, like before the fair that would happen every year, that was the one time of year that a lot of us would be around people not in the church, and so we
right.
were we were coached and prepared on how to present ourselves, what was okay to say, what was not okay to say. Um, and beforehand, so imagine you have been chosen to be someone who is going to speak to the public, right? You're going to do this video where you're going to talk about how much you love the church.
Right.
That person, I can guarantee you, was heavily coached
No doubt. No doubt.
on what to say, how to say it, with a lot of expectation of how they represented themselves,
Even down to the
and the
facial
church.
expressions, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember
So,
being in the children's choir, and one year, I think I was 8, I looked too sad.
mhm.
And so like on the like dress rehearsal, the elder Blair, whatever, would come and watch the performance. And they told the teacher that if I didn't smile more, I wouldn't be allowed to participate in that year's choir.
Right.
So then the teacher told our parents that, probably mom, because anyway, and so yeah, I definitely smiled more. I wanted to be part of it.
Right. So, with that context, I think people who had a childhood where they felt safe to experience conflict or to voice a dissenting opinion, they will not ever be able to understand having your thoughts policed. It wasn't until um I actually worked with a couple of different therapists, and I finally met a therapist in my late 30s who really was like the cause of like incredible breakthroughs for me. And she had a lot of extensive experience working with people like myself. Um, and not even specifically with cults, although she was familiar with them, but just like childhood trauma,
Hmm.
and family, abusive family systems. And so what I learned from her, like a lot of it was super instrumental in like the next phase of my personal journey and my integration, and the thought, like I never had anybody really talk about what it's like to have your thoughts policed, um and to recognize the impact that that has on your nervous system, in terms of safety and like belief in yourself, because like that before. And it's so true, where if there's nowhere safe that you can go, not even in your own head, you are always performing, because you're always in danger.
Right.
And your nervous system interprets always being in danger in a very specific and unique way, creating that complex trauma that where you have to create this like version of reality that is okay, like you're okay. Like the human brain is incredible, right? Like even in the most abusive instances, you can convince your mind that this is normal, and that it's okay, that you're safe, that you're happy. Even if you're not, your brain will work really, really hard to convince you of that. And so your version of reality is like all over the map,
Yeah, it
and
actually
it's
does
not
break
reliable.
off and create a different version of you that may not be acquainted with the version of you that is experiencing the abuse, right?
Yes, and that was another thing that that therapist did so beautifully. They introduced me to the concept of parts and
Like
parts
systems
work.
within ourselves.
Yeah, so internal family systems is a really powerful model that uh I found super, super helpful in understanding these different parts of myself, and accessing the different parts of myself. in a way that really felt real, and helped me to connect with my 11-year-old self, with my, 15-year-old self, with my 6-year-old self, with the different parts of me, and then not even just my own chronological age, but the different parts of me that became what they were in order to help me survive, like the parts of me that protect the protector parts, the parts that maybe felt that they had to lie or manipulate reality and people in order to be safe.
Mhm.
um it's all very, like, it's very real for me, and I was doing the best that I could with what I had, but your brain does like fracture and split and kind of create these parts of yourself are that are online in order to protect, like, the essence of you, your soul, the part of you that you would think of when you think of like your true self.
Mhm.
um so yeah, there's all sorts of crazy good resources and therapy out there. It took me a while to access them.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was married to somebody who was making well over six figures a year that I was able to access this sort of healthcare, because that therapist was very good therapist, and she was like 250 bucks an hour, and she didn't take insurance. Like, the fact that
Right.
I was able to go and see that person was, I could in my 20s, and even like in my 20s I would have never ever had access to that. And a lot of people
That's a
would.
big thing that stops people from even being able, like, that's probably the main thing that stops people being able to heal is financial, and that's really unfortunate. Even if you get free healthcare, a lot of them, like you said, the best ones, the ones that are actually like trained in these types of things, they're not accepting private insurance, maybe.
Yeah.
So I just want to plug, there's this resource called Recovering from Religion. If anybody out there
Okay.
is listening, it's so it's not actually therapists, but it's somebody. So it's a network of volunteers.
Oh, it's peer support.
It's peer support, and it's called
That's awesome.
recoveringfromreligion.org. So if you are someone out there and you're watching this and you don't know who you can talk to, you can go to recoveringfromreligion.org, and you could actually just talk with somebody right there. There's like a chat button, or there's numbers you can call.
That's
Um,
very cool.
and yeah, they also have a place where you can sign up. They have like a network of therapists that are specialized in these kind of things, and you can sign up through that. And but those are, you'd have to pay to see them probably, or use your insurance or whatever. But I just want to say that because that's something I learned about a few weeks ago. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I think when you're just coming out of a situation like that, it can be really, really hard to trust anybody.
Right.
And I think that I was connected to some people who wanted to support me, but I did not accept the help because I just didn't know how to. Receiving support is actually really difficult to do for a lot of people. Um, because especially if you don't know who's safe or you're just not familiar with receiving support. Um,
If you can't even trust yourself, how are you going to trust someone else?
yeah, and like I said, like, I know now that the only way I can ever that like the only way that the only reason I have safe people in my life is because I'm a safe person for myself, right? Like I got my own back and I'm a safe person for myself, and I was not a safe person for myself, and so I just didn't know who I could trust, and the easiest thing was to just not trust anybody.
Yeah.
So that definitely, I think, peer support, I'm a huge fan of. I've actually put myself in a couple of different like peer support training programs. because I am very interested in like holding space and offering support for people. And I think that it's a very powerful thing to do. And I think that humans are actually much better at it than we realize. Like Western medicine has pathologized like our understanding of like healthcare to the point where like we feel like there's something wrong with us just because we have to get therapy. And actually, like peer support is a very beautiful, very natural, like supportive thing that anybody can do for another person.
Yes.
Um, and you can be trained on how to do it in a way that is more helpful. For example, I've done the Zendo project training, which is provides support for people who are going through a challenging psychedelic experience.
Okay.
But the really awesome thing about it is it's applicable for anybody who's having just like a an intense emotional experience as well, because they're actually quite the same. Having an intense emotional experience can feel very psychedelic, even if you're sober, because you're like experiencing altered realities, where maybe you're having something big is happening in your life, and it's going against everything that you thought that you knew. And so you're having to hold this space for like the dichotomy between what is real and what is also real, and that feels psychedelic. And
Wow,
so
I love
just
that you came back around to that, but what is how can people find more about Zendo?
Zendo is a MAPS program. It's a psychedelic association that advocates for psychedelic use and the benefits from that.
I'll put a website down below if we can find one later. Do they have a website?
Yeah, they do. Zendo is a really awesome resource. I think that from like a decolonial perspective, MAPS is has received a lot of like criticism for how they have kind of treated the renaissance, the so-called psychedelic renaissance, because Westerners are accessing psychedelic medicine, and these different like plant healing modalities for the first time in a big way, and a lot of it has been commodified, or like extracted from native cultures, in a way that has been really harmful. And so I will say that about maps, do your research and see what's
Okay.
true for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's really
Um,
interesting because I had meant to ask you about it whenever you said that you went to Burning Man, which Burning Man is often associated with these kind of altered states of mind by through using these medicines. It's
yeah.
something that a lot of people do there. I've never been, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, I think it's common in pretty much all festival culture, and despite what they might tell you, Burning Man is definitely a festival.
Yeah.
You
I think
pay a
it's
ticket.
really interesting
It's a very
because
different pet festival, but it's still a festival. So
yeah, okay, okay. So what you said about like psychedelic journey and like your basic meltdown being kind of the same thing. I think tell me what you think about this. The when you take one of these medicines, it kind of triggers what you may already have. um it's kind of a healing, so it might cause, because if you have something happening where you're having this like cognitive dissonance, you're having a meltdown or some kind of severe anxiety, I think it's these parts of yourselves sort of trying to come back together, and that's what's causing this like mismatch. And so I think when you take these medicines, it sort of triggers those things, and that's why those things feel the same.
mm,
And that's why it's called medicine, is because it's getting you in touch with these disparate parts of yourself in a way and
yeah.
bringing you back. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that anytime a psychedelic is introduced, you are playing with altered states of reality. And there's a lot of power in an altered reality because many things can be true, and you're like, you're agreeing to, well, you're not even agreeing so much. Hopefully you've consented to take the medicine, but like the fundamental premise of reality is shifting, and by doing so, like, you are inviting in the opportunity for things to be true that you might not otherwise can believe to be true.
That's a
um
really great definition. I love that. Wow. So I was talking with this woman, Kathy Harris, last week, and we recorded a video, and she's like a cult recovery specialist, but she specializes within that with supporting people's psychedelic journeys. So
mm-hmm.
she's like in these two really niche things at the same time.
What's her name?
Kathy Harris.
Okay.
She's out
I've
of California. Sorry, go ahead.
I've met some really cool people in the psychedelic space. In even with the MAPS events, I remember I met this one person who specialized in cult recovery. I don't remember her name off the
It
top
might
of
have
my
been her. Did
head.
she have like purple hair?
I don't remember.
It could have been.
Um,
But anyway, that video is coming out at some point. I think I
cool.
probably will post it tomorrow and you can watch it. But
Yeah. I remember that this lady told me, because I had mentioned about my experience of growing up, and because she had talked about a little bit about what she did, and she asked me about my life, and at that point I was like in my mid 30s. I was like volunteering at the psychedelic conference. I had, like, had a successful career for like 10 years in tech, and had friends, and like by like all definition I was thriving. um and I remember she told me, she was like, you're a very special case because most people that had the experience that you had don't thrive. They die. And I I was very like I was very humbled. I was proud that, and it made me feel good, but I was also very like it was very sobering to realize, because I keep in touch, and like I with people who also like grew up in the same cult that we did, and I have seen people die, and I've seen people like become like addicts, and uh go down these paths where they're still surviving, even they're barely surviving, and a lot of times they don't make it. And so I do feel like, for whatever reason, like, I am in this very special place where I'm 41, and I I don't ever like, this is really special for me to share. I mean, ever since I was 11 years old to when I was probably like 37 years old, um so a long time, I always had suicidal ideation. Like, that was just something that I lived with. And some days and years and months were better than others, and some were really bad. And for the last like 3 years, I don't have suicidal ideation. Like,
woohoo!
I just don't have it anymore. I have gotten to this place in my life where I am full of purpose. I'm surrounded by people that care about me. And I have everything that I need. And I just the fact that, and I it's not that I don't get sad anymore, because I do. We've been for the past 2 years, I guess we've been watching this genocide happen, and that has been just incredibly sad and uh grief inducing. And I lost my dog last year, which really kind of like brought me down and like had me not feeling like myself. And even with those like really heavy things that are going on, I don't feel suicidal. I don't think about suicide. I feel grief. But I for a large part, like, I think it has to do with the fact that like I have a lot of purpose in my life. I had a lot of connection, a lot of community, a lot of support, and just like I feel incredibly grateful to be at this part of my life where I can say that, and that can be like my truth. Because a big thing about me is like I have always really been obsessed with truth. Like I have really wanted to know the truth. I want to know what's real, because I know that reality is so subjective, and I know that reality is created by everybody around that you're around, right? Truth is this idea that is so fascinating to me, as someone who, in my growing up, I felt like I could never tell the truth. I didn't know what was real most of the time. And so I am very interested in like this concept of truth, and personal truth is something that is very real. um and shared truth is also something that's real. Like people can choose whatever they want to be true. And as long as they believe the same thing, then it is real for them. And that
Yeah,
is what happened, in the cult, right? Like we
right.
all agreed on a version of reality, and we worked really hard to make that be the only version of reality. And what I have learned through my study of truth, is that everything is true, actually. And nothing is true at the same time. So somewhere in that realization and like knowing has like really liberated me, because I know that I am free to create my own truth. I know that my reality is mine to shape at every moment. And having the liberation part is so key. And that's why like that's something that I care about more than almost anything else, is the right that any human has to be free and to be liberated and to choose their own beliefs. Because like truth is this powerful thing that we get to decide what it is for ourselves. um and and we also give that away to other people to tell us what our truth is a lot. Even if we're not in a cult, that's something that happens to people and humans a lot, because we exchange that for connection. um but it turns out you can be in connection with other people who honor and respect your truth and let you have your truth. And you don't have to like exchange that. You don't have to like give that up. You can you can be loved and be supported and like still tell the truth, and that's something that's super cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I love that you're using words like liberation and freedom, and because that's like when I was thinking about what do I want like a sort of theme of this talk show, podcast, whatever to be. And I just kept coming back around to, freedom. Like
Mm,
how to get to freedom after you've been psychologically and sometimes physically and spiritually abused. So it's
yeah.
freedom. It's this theme of becoming free, being able to, because it's your right, because like you said, as a human being, um you're supposed to be free. You're supposed to be choosing your beliefs and sort of, going through your reality like, what do I enjoy? Then let's do more of that. And that's your right as a human being. So I just really think this is a great place to sort of a great note to land on for this, because I'm so happy, just as your sister, I'm so happy that you are in that place where you're no longer experiencing that because I know how terrible that is. And I also know how great that feeling of not being like that is. And I'm just like really, really happy. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking so many awesome questions. Um, I I think one of the most painful things that I had to deal with, like as a result of growing up, like having the experience that I did, is the separation that I had from my family, right? Um, and my brothers and sisters, and because when I left, like y'all were all still like young and like still living at home, and my parents weren't safe people to be in relationship with, and so I kind of lost access to y'all, and in the experience of like leaving and going off on my own.
Yeah,
um
that's really sad. I remember missing you a lot. And I do think, I've thought about it from time to time that probably our relationship was tainted by being in that group together and the sort of pressures to be a certain way and just the dynamics within that group probably caused us to have a different relationship than we would have had. And now as adults, we're healing that. But that's something that's real, that we probably will never be able to know what it's like to have that like pure, like childlike sort of sibling connection that other people might have been able to have.
yeah, I think in a group like that that kind of pits everybody against each other, it definitely is felt in the family unit. But I think that I am really proud of the fact that we have the relationship that we have, especially
Definitely.
just after a lot of the things that we went through together. And I think it's really cool that we are friends and that we are in each other's life. And it's
Yeah.
something that I definitely am really grateful for.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you as well. And the fact that we went through that and we were pitted against each other and that we've been able to come through that and still, be friends is just a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and of us both. And